Hi, Mike McCulley here at the Cariboo Fire Center, joined by Kevin Skrepnek, our Chief Provincial Fire Information Officer. I'd like to start today by talking about the area restriction that's been in play in the Cariboo Fire Center. As of 2 p.m. this afternoon, we have rescinded that restriction. We have replaced it with some specific new restrictions, particularly over top of our active fire areas. These do allow folks to now start using the waterways, but again, some new restrictions in play, and we encourage folks to go to our website, bcwildfire.ca, to learn exactly what those look like and how to stay in compliance. You can also find more information on our Facebook page at BC Wildfire Service. Would like to remind folks that there is still an off-road vehicle restriction in play, and of course lots of evacuation orders that are still in effect and still very valid. So that's what we'd like to start with today. Now Kevin, maybe you could talk a little bit to folks about the Elephant Hill fire. Obviously it has a restriction as well, and maybe talk about why.
Yeah, certainly. So like all these fires in the Cariboo, the Elephant Hill fire does have an area restriction around it. Again, as Mike said, that's all about public safety and, of course, the safety of our responders as well. We don't want people in those areas for a whole medley of what I would think are fairly obvious reasons. Now, in terms of that fire itself, it's definitely been one of our more active incidents over the last few days. Quite a bit of smoke coming up from that fire, even some columns visible here from Williams Lake yesterday. It's been less so today. Most of the activity out at Elephant Hill has been within the existing fire's perimeter. So unburnt islands of green fuel in there that is now starting to burn. It's not necessarily been growth. They have had a bit of excursion outside, but most of the activity people are seeing is within the perimeter out there at Elephant Hill. Our estimated size on that fire right now, 166,000 hectares. That's actually a little smaller than what we had been reporting before, and that's just because of more accurate mapping of that fire, which is something that happens quite often when we're dealing with fires just of this sheer size.
Right, and of course we know that fire behavior is driven often by wind. So just a little bit about the weather today, Kevin. We are seeing some increase of wind across the fire center. We've been talking to you about a cold front that may move through the area sort of today and yesterday. That front came across and was not quite as organized a front as we were expecting. Not a smooth transition from wind to no wind. Instead, what we're seeing is some convective activity in the fire center. So again, not a lot of precipitation expected down here in the southwest. Possibly a little bit more in the northeast. We have had some lightning through the central part of the fire center, and we do have patrols out. We have crews out in aircraft patrolling those areas as we speak, looking for new starts. So what we'll be looking at going forward is, again, another day or so of this convective activity, some rainfall in specific areas. And when we have that type of weather, we obviously adjust our fire tactics, which drive the way we classify our fires. And maybe, Kevin, you can talk a little bit about some of the verbiage and terminology that we use.
Yeah, so we've seen some of your comments around a lot of the jargon, a lot of the terminology that we use in this business, and we are certainly guilty of that. It's a fairly technical industry we work in, so you'll hear a lot of acronyms, a lot of jargon that might not necessarily be plain English. So one of the ones we wanted to demystify a little bit are about the stages of fires. So you'll hear us talk about fires that are being held, fires that are under control, things like that. Those are nationally standardized terms that BC actually just adopted this year. They came from the Canadian Interagency Forest Fire Centre, CIFC, which is a national body here, a cooperative of all the wildfire agencies in the country. It's also the agency that we acquire our out-of-province resources through, so we've got a great relationship with CIFC. There's four response types, stages of control: out of control, being held, under control, and out. So an out-of-control fire speaks for itself. It's a new fire. It's burning actively. It's not reacting to any of our suppression. It's a wildfire. Once we've got a fire being held, basically means we don't expect it to grow a whole lot further. We've gotten some elements in place to contain it. We're basically mopping up parts of the fire, but there is potential for it to flare back up again. A fire that is under control means we've got it 100% contained. We've got a fuel-free barrier around it. There's not a lot of avenues for it to continue growing. To put a fire under control means we're pretty confident it's not going to be expanding any further. And then, of course, when a fire is out, it means it's going to be totally extinguished. Now, with some of these fires that we've got in the Cariboo region, I'll be quite blunt. These fires will not be out probably until the snow flies, just with the size of these fires and the intensity that they've been burning with.
Right, and certainly as we move through the fire season, one of the things we like to do in these fires, when the status changes, we've had some good luck around the community of Williams Lake, obviously, is talk to the public about that. We try to engage as often as we can, and that includes public meetings. And I would just like to remind folks that tomorrow night at 7 o'clock there will be a public meeting at the Wildwood Fire Hall. Please join us for that, and we'd like to provide you as much information as we can on that fire and other fires around the area. And so thanks for joining us today. Stay tuned tomorrow for more.